Good afternoon, all. I recently participated in the ASCD Symposium for Educator Mental Health and Wellness, and today I will be going over a session that founder of Empower Forward's Lauren Porosoff had presented on peer-to-peer professional development. We will be focusing on the wellness and building an authentic learning community at our school. In this first slide, you will see the model of a wellness triangle Lauren had adopted from the Maslow hierarchy of needs. She breaks them down into the following. 1. Physiological needs. Food, water, shelter, sleep, exercise, and medicine. 2. Safety. Freedom of illness, injury, oppression, financial security. 3. Belonging. Love, acceptance, family, friendship, connection, and fellowship. 4. Esteem. Being fully seen and heard, affirmed, respected, and appreciated. 5. Self-actualization. Achieving our full potential in accordance with our values. And 6. Transcendence. Being part of something larger than ourselves. So what is peer-to-peer professional development? Well, traditional PD, everyone in the room is positioned to either be the expert, the person presenting, or the learner, the person being educated, which we understand that it is the expert's job to share their knowledge with the learners. But if we were to be in a room together having a conversation, you would be able to offer things that you are an expertise on that I may not have knowledge of. As we know, learning is not so simple as an expert transmitting knowledge, and I know that you watching this presentation and a colleague watching this presentation will be able to take away different points that I'm sharing. The PD that I will be sharing with you, I also understand that if you were to take it into the school setting, it will look different from someone else's, whether we're in person or remote. So our first format for peer-to-peer PD is a workshop circled here. This is something that we are very familiar with. It is where the presenter is an expert and the colleagues are the learners. But we could also look at it as me today sharing this PD with all of you, and then next week, one of you sharing a PD with me, and us learning from each other that way. The council format below is actually when you are sharing a question or concern that you have with colleagues, where they are serving as experts and you are getting their advice and sharing their experiences. But today, the three formats that I want to talk more about are the toolbox share, the bring back, and the intervision group. And the reason is for this is because everyone in these three are positioned equally. So in toolbox share, everyone is an expert. In the bring back, everyone is the learner. And in intervision group, everyone is an expert and a learner. Lauren Porosoff goes on to discuss a term called toolbox share. They're based off of how do we questions. With a toolbox share, everyone is a learner. Examples might be you have a group of English teachers asking, how do we integrate social emotional learning into academic instruction? Or a group of math teachers asking, how do we use classroom spaces to promote learning? Or how do we ensure 100% classroom participation? It is important to understand that we're not asking questions such as, how should we, according to some set of values, or not how could we if we wanted to, or we're allowed, and not how would we if we were under different circumstances. These are how do we questions and how do we already do this. Lauren also offers up an example of how do we communicate with families. Here you will see an example of the toolbox share of how do we communicate with families that Lauren Porosoff had created. You're in a group, and so each of you introduce the how do we question and we share in order. The second is collect thoughts on what would be most important to share. So you each are going around and you're sharing what you feel is important for the how do we question or how we're going to do this. 3, we're sharing our responses and we're going to track each colleague's responses. And then we're going to reflect on what's most appealing, useful, and different. And then 5, we're sharing the next step. So here's the example so you can see a little bit more clearer. So the first bullets are your collecting thoughts. And then below you see the group split up and what their responses are. As we continue on to our second professional development format, the bring back, you'll see that this is the opposite of the toolbox share because everyone is a learner. For example, I am bringing back what I have learned from Lauren Porosov's presentation to share with you all today. This could also be a video that you've watched or a learning experience you've encountered. The point is that we are bringing it back to our colleagues as the presenter. And when we do bring it back to our group, there are 3 rounds of discussion that will happen. The first question is, what is this? What is this that's being presented? What is this that I'm hearing? For example, what is peer-to-peer professional development? Then after exploring the ideas, the group goes on to pragmatic questions. How would we even apply this? So how could we implement peer-to-peer professional development within our school or our district or our class or grade level that we teach? This question is where you start to imagine how it's going to look. And then the final question is our critical question. What are the limits of this? For example, what would even be the cost for implementing this? Or what would be a challenging, what would I need to learn to be able to do this? Or how would we hold ourselves accountable to be able to do this? So with learning, we really need to slow ourselves down to be able to even ask ourselves, what is this? How would we apply this? And what are the limits of this? The bring back method is for colleagues to come together to use their exploratory, pragmatic, and critical thinking conversations. Even if the material does not end up even being useful as thought, the conversations between educators is what is important and where the growth will be. So I'd like to continue on to the third format, which is intervision group, where everyone has the same amount of power. And this is in no way any part of any kind of evaluation. So there's no criticism, no praise, no suggestions. It is purely non-judgmental feedback. Intervision group is always a group of 3. And so Lauren Porosov in her presentation gives an example of being in a group with a middle school art teacher, Lena, and John, who is a 7th grade math teacher, and she is the 6th grade English teacher. So it starts off where the 2 adults, we're going to say John and Lauren, going to Lena's art class, where Lauren is going to be the noticer. So she's going to write down any observations that she sees throughout the class experience, anything that catches her attention or stands out in any way. This could be something that Lena does as a teacher or a student does. It could be something on the walls or on the tables. It could be anything that she's observing. While John's role will be the questioner. John is going to write down any questions that make him curious or confused. Then, after their time observing Lena's art class, John and Lauren can meet in the hallway or Zoom if we're doing remote, and together they write their interpretations of what seems important to Lena, their colleague, not to them. This could be what's important to Lena as a teacher or for their students, but it's important to understand that it is the interpretation of Lauren and John for what they believe Lena believes is important based on what they had viewed. And then both Lauren and John individually write down what inspired them by viewing Lena's class. It could be something that she was teaching her class, some things on the wall that was inspiring to them that they maybe want to use in their classroom now. So this intervision group now continues until each educator has a turn observing the other classrooms. For example, John was just the questioner with Lauren observing Lena's art class, and now he's observing Lauren's class, and maybe he's the observer now. Then they finally all come together and go over what it is that they have noted for each other. For example, someone may have noticed that there was something on Lauren's wall that proposed a question, like, why was it there? Why do you have it? And now's the opportunity that Lauren can explain to them what it was for. When we look at how they interpreted some of the things that they may have experienced or observed or questioned, now we are asking, are there ways that I want to further these things or maybe rework them? When I look at what has inspired them within my classroom experience, let's say, those things I now focus on, do I want to further inspire with these, or maybe I wasn't trying to inspire and now I want to maybe reevaluate. Maybe it wasn't more of an inspirational thing that I wanted to target. Maybe I see it as a distraction. Notice that there is no criticism, no praise, no suggestions. These are all non-judgmental feedback that empowers the subject. So we have to understand that we can't just stick teachers in a room and hope that they will be authentic learning community that promotes all these wellness behaviors. It's just not going to happen by magic, by hoping for it, or even by making rules. Because any faculty community is already going to have all kinds of dynamics in play. There might be cliques, there might be relational aggression or microaggression based off of different aspects of identity. There might be certain people or a person that feels entitled to speak at length just to hear the sound of their voice. And other people may be silent because they feel like they're silenced or because they feel like they don't have anything to contribute or nothing interesting. So sometimes leaders may make rules, like you're not allowed on your phones, but there will always be another way for distraction or people to not be engaged in the professional development. So structural problems need structural solutions. So structuring peer-to-peer development to be actively promoting educator wellness is what needs to happen. And Lauren Pursoff's presentation had shared ways to help structure this through protocols. So first, the protocols can foster a sense of belonging by listening meaningful contributions from every teacher. No passing. Everyone has something important to contribute. A great example would be the toolbox share. We will have a sense of belonging in our educator community by doing this. The second protocol that Lauren has shared is to ensure that each teacher is fully heard and taken seriously. Everyone has a voice, we know that, but that does not necessarily mean every voice is listened to, affirmed, or respected, or even appreciated. But all these protocols have opportunities for teachers to be heard. The toolbox share, everyone's name is written down with a tidbit of what they shared. Or intervision, each teacher has a specific role to make it so they are heard. The third protocol is that all lead to values-based action. To do something different, to learn something new, to have a conversation, all end in some kind of committed action that is based on each individual teacher's values. So then everyone gets a chance to think, how can I grow? Or how will this keep pushing me in the direction of achieving my full potential according to what happens to me? Finally, all of the protocols can be integrated into a professional development series or unit. Series, for example, is what if instead of randomly doing a bring back professional development on Wednesday, we decide to do one every first Wednesday of a month. And a different teacher is responsible for doing one each month. This can reinforce growth, not just for myself, but my community. or even a professional development unit, where inquiry-based professional development units, where each learning experience contributes to that inquiry. This PD experience contributes our learning together, an understanding and idea that we all find important. And this allows teachers to be part of something that is larger. So all these protocols you see are community learning events. And the community is going to allow for some amount of accountability for all individuals participating. These protocols make it really hard to not listen and not be engaged. I'd like to wrap up my presentation for you guys today by sharing the importance of framing professional development to promote wellness. Lauren Porosoff said it perfectly in her presentation, that we usually frame professional development by what problem does it solve or what deficit does it correct. We don't know how to make curriculum maps, or we don't know how to do SEL in a way that is trauma informed and anti-racist. And so now we need to learn, and PD is designed to fill that gap. But only framing PD as a solution to a problem or as a correction of a deficit is that it's not especially revitalizing for teachers to always be thinking about themselves as having a problem that needs to be solved. So, another way to frame PD is to ask yourselves, what values does it serve? We can create a conducive environment by thinking about shifting our focus from a problem that needs to be solved to instead asking ourselves, what values does this serve for the kind of community that we want? Or does it create, or what does it create when we learn about this topic together? When we engage in this protocol all together, does it bring us closer? Or how does it maybe even help us develop a body of work that can extend beyond ourselves? And to further that, maybe even leave something behind for the teaching profession that can be a way for all of us to engage in wellness together. Thank you guys.